I want to read a bit from volume 9 of Tristram Shandy, and it's a particularly interesting bit. It's where Tristram comes across the character in the book whose name is Maria. And Maria is an interesting character in that she appears not only in Tristram Shandy towards the end of the book, just before it finishes, but then she reappears in A Sentimental Journey. So this sort of reinforces the fact that the character is perhaps even more maybe based on somebody that perhaps he knew, or maybe not, we don't know. But she's an interesting character because she serves as an example, perhaps, to the reader as an object that we can identify with through Sterne and his writing, and also through Sterne and his preaching. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, where the man is by the side of the road and is injured and is receiving no help, then it's the Good Samaritan that looks after him and finds him in a vulnerable position and takes care of him and sustains the care. Doesn't help him just for a moment, but looks after him. And the fact that Maria comes in the second book, where obviously it isn't Tristram that comes across him then, it's Yorick. But Yorick's Tristram as well. Shall I read it? For my Uncle Toby's amours running all the way in my head, they had the same effect upon me as if they had been my own. I was in the most perfect state of bounty and goodwill, and felt the kindliest harmony vibrating within me with every oscillation of the chaise alike, so that whether the roads were rough or smooth, it made no difference. Everything I saw or had to do with touched upon some secret spring, either of sentiment or rapture. They were the sweetest notes I ever heard, and I instantly let down the foreglass to hear them more distinctly. "'Tis Maria," said the postilion, observing I was listening. "Poor Maria," continued he, leaning his body on one side to let me see her, for he was in a line betwixt us, "is sitting upon a bank, playing her vespers upon her pipe, with her little goat beside her." The young fellow uttered this with an accent and a look so perfectly in tune to a feeling heart that I instantly made a vow I would give him a 24-sou piece when I got to Moulins. "And who is poor Maria?" said I. "The love and pity of all the villagers around us," said the postilion. "It is but 3 years ago that the sun did not shine upon so fair, so quick-witted and amiable a maid, and better did Maria deserve than to have her banns forbid by the intrigues of the curate of the parish who published them." He was going on, when Maria, who had made a short pause, put the pipe to her mouth and began the air again. They were the same notes, yet were 10 times sweeter. "It is the evening service to the Virgin," said the young man. "But who has taught her to play it, or how she came by her pipe, no one knows. We think that Heaven has assisted her in both, for ever since she has been unsettled in her mind, it seems her only consolation. She has never once had the pipe out of her hand, but plays that service upon it almost night and day." The postilion delivered this with so much discretion and natural eloquence that I could not help deciphering something in his face above his condition, and should have sifted out his history had not poor Maria's taken such full possession of me. We had got up by this time almost to the bank where Maria was sitting. She was in a thin white jacket, with her hair all but 2 tresses drawn up into a silk net, and with a few olive leaves twisted a little fantastically on one side. She was beautiful, and if ever I felt the full force of an honest heartache, it was the moment I saw her. God help her, poor damsel. Above 100 masses said the postilion, have been said in the several parish churches and convents around for her, but without effect. We have still hopes, as she is sensible for short intervals, that the Virgin at last will restore her to herself, but her parents, who know her best, are hopeless upon that score, and think her senses are lost for ever. As the postilion spoke this, Maria made a cadence so melancholy, so tender and querulous, that I sprung out of the chaise to help her, and found myself sitting betwixt her and her goat before I relapsed from my enthusiasm. Maria looked wistfully for some time at me, and then at her goat, and then at me, and then at her goat again, and so on, alternately. "Well, Maria," said I softly, "what resemblance do you find?" I do entreat the candid reader to believe me that it was from the humblest conviction of what a beast man is that I asked the question, and that I would not have let fallen an unseasonable pleasantry in the venerable presence of misery to be entitled to all the wit that ever Rabelais scattered. And yet I own my heart smote me, and that I so smarted at the very idea of it that I swore I would set up for wisdom and utter grave sentences the rest of my days, and never attempt again to commit mirth with man, woman, or child the longest day I had to live. As for writing nonsense of them, I believe there was a reserve, but that I leave to the world. Adieu, Maria. Adieu, poor hapless damsel. Sometime, but not now, I may hear thy sorrows from thy own lips. But I was deceived. For that moment she took her pipe and told me such a tale of woe with it, that I rose up and with broken and irregular steps walked softly to my chaise. What an excellent inn at Moulins!